If someone's upset, they're in what in psychology is called a dysregulated state. That means they're in some form of fight, flight, freeze or fawn, or some combination of those. We all send off cues and signals communicating what's going on with us. And there's a lot of research being done, but basically there are three main types of cues that fall into two categories. The two categories are verbal and non-verbal cues. The non-verbal cues are body language. So basically that includes facial expressions, movements, gestures, and things like that. The verbal cues are words, the words that we use, and our tone of voice, so how we say those words. We may say something, but our tone of voice or body language doesn't match what we're saying. The classic example is when someone says something like, "I'm fine," but obviously they're not. When our words and our tone and our body language don't match, it generally means that we're dysregulated. For example, someone might say, "I'm not angry," but you probably wouldn't believe that they're not angry. You'll have seen this kind of mismatch many times. Albert Mehrabian has done a lot of research on this, which is often misquoted, but basically, when body language, tone, and words don't match, we tend to trust body language and tone of voice more than the actual words that we're using. We don't have time to go through all the different types of cues, but here are some examples that you might find helpful. You might see someone's body language tighten as they become more still, and they may be going into freeze. You might see their face tighten. You might also detect a change in their tone of voice. Maybe they're speaking in a more clipped way, or they're trying to stay in control. So there's that change in tone of voice. Someone might get angry or frustrated. In my opinion, frustration is anger's lesser cousin. So anger is often a covering emotion when people feel that their boundaries have been violated. And it often covers hurt or sadness and sometimes fear. When we see anger in others, it's understandable to feel defensive, but frequently anger is actually a sign of upset. Sometimes if people are speaking when they're upset, you'll notice that their tone is different. And often also people have a tendency to repeat the same thing over and over again as though they're in a loop. And in fact, emotionally, they kind of are in a loop because they haven't processed the emotions or the situation that they're talking about. Reflecting back to them what you've heard them say is often really helpful with that. And then, of course, someone might get up and leave the conversation in a way that makes you think that they're probably upset. These are a few examples. When people are upset, we may help them regain balance and feel more regulated in a number of ways. But obviously, often we're going to want to pause the conversation that's upsetting them, at least for a while, to give them a chance to recover. It might be as simple as moving the conversation on. They may want to talk about what's upsetting them, but not necessarily, in which case it could be a good idea to ask them what you can do to help. Listen to what they say and be aware that they may not know in that moment or struggle to express what they want. And they may say something and then shortly after change their minds because emotions and emotional states can change quickly. If they're involved in the conversation and actively speaking, the best way to help them regulate is often going to be to reflect back what you've heard them say and check in that you've understood it correctly. There's another video in this series explaining how to do that and why it's so effective. You often see people visibly calm down when you show them that you're listening and that you've heard what they've said. Most mediators have many examples of people who've said to them that they've never felt so heard and understood just because the mediator listened to them attentively and then reflected back what they'd heard them say. It's very helpful and it's very therapeutic. This is a big topic that we can't cover in one video, but I've set out a few hints here. I hope you find these helpful. If you want to stay up to date with new releases on the Disagreeing Well skills course, please subscribe to UCL's YouTube channel and also to UCL's Minds newsletter.